The various arguments about the death penalty provide us with an example of how to identify issues with regard to this topic. Now, remember, the first thing that we need to do in identifying issues is simply lay out the different arguments from each side of a problem. So, for the death penalty, there's a pro side and a con side. For the pro side, there are usually arguments that state something like the death penalty deters crime. Another pro argument might be that killing someone without justification is one of the worst acts, so it justifies the use of the death penalty. Another argument in support of the death penalty would be that it makes society safer for the average person. And then another one, and this is not a comprehensive list, but I'm identifying some major ones, is that the technology related to administering the death penalty has made it humane. So it is a good use of punishment with regard to particular crimes. Now, on the con side, we might hear some arguments like using the death penalty actually takes innocent lives. Another argument would be murderers do not consider the consequences of their actions, so the death penalty can't be a deterrent to crime. Another argument is that the death penalty is cruel and unusual. And finally, we also hear that killing a person for any reason, even if it's as a punishment for killing someone else, is a horrible thing to do. So now that we've laid out each of our arguments, we can now look for issues. And remember, these are the points where the two sides, or however many sides are arguing, clash. So as we go through our list of different arguments, we probably notice a few different clashes. One, there's the argument that the death penalty deters crime. Of course, the con side says no, murderers do not actually consider the consequences of their actions, so they're not thinking about the death penalty when they're about to commit the crimes that they commit. So here we have an issue because we have a point of contention. The next step in actually developing the issue is to state that point of contention as a question. So a question related to this clash might be, well, does the death penalty actually deter crime? The relationship to this question and critical thinking is that asking the question gets us to identify some of the assumptions that each side is making in its argument and get down to the details and the supporting evidence to see which side is making the stronger argument. Another potential issue is whether or not we're actually protecting innocent people. Because if you notice, the pro side says the death penalty makes society safer for the average person. So there's an interest in protecting innocent lives. On the con side, the opponents of the death penalty say, no, wait a minute, the death penalty actually takes innocent lives, and we have proof because people who were originally convicted, sentenced to death, executed, were then shown to be innocent. So what we see is a question over whether or not the death penalty protects innocent lives. Now, I find this example particularly interesting because we can ask that question, does the death penalty protect innocent lives? And that becomes an issue that we can explore and see which side is making a stronger argument. But it also helps in identifying common ground because both sides are expressing an interest in protecting innocent lives. So that means that they have some shared values. And those shared values might allow us to develop some ideas that get both sides into agreement in ways that saying, well, this side is better than the other side doesn't do. Another potential clash would be that the death penalty is or is not a cruel form of punishment. So proponents of the death penalty say, yes, the technology we have is making this a humane punishment for the crimes that are committed. But on the con side, there's the argument that this is indeed a cruel form of punishment. So we have a clash, and we can ask, is the death penalty a cruel form of punishment? And we've had some interesting examples lately that suggest that some of the chemicals that we're using to administer the death penalty are actually very harmful and have prolonged the suffering of the individual. So that adds to the discussion, and we can incorporate that into our analysis on which side is presenting the stronger argument. So these questions that we produce allow us to explore the issues in greater detail. Again, to recap the process, we lay out the various arguments, we look for the places where they clash, and in the places they clash, we can identify the issue as a question. And these questions are what we can use to employ our critical thinking to see which side is presenting the superior argument. And that also allows us to find common ground that might move us toward a more satisfactory agreement for both sides.